Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. Welcome to this episode of the Note Closers Show, and honored to have you guys here today. Jacked up, excited to have a couple rock stars in the making who are doing some fantastic things, not only with their own note investments, but who are also the hosts of the new note investing podcast called Good Deeds Note Investing. So I want to give a big round of applause. Yay. For our good friends, Chris Seveney and Gail Anthony Greenberg. What's going on, y'all?
Hey, Scott. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you, too, as well. Same to you, Chris.
Yep. Thank you, Scott. Happy New Year. And great to be on today.
Yeah, you guys are rocking and rolling along there a little bit. So excited that you guys have rolled out the Good Deeds Note Investing podcast and are in the episode number 20, something like that?
Yeah, we've got 15 live right now and posted, and we're recording 2 per week and stuff. So, and just launching 2 per week. So it's been good.
Yeah, we're just one drunken evening away from having a few more done. Cheers.
Well, that may be a good reason why you're not doing video. High returns and reds. Liquid returns. You want to be liquid, right? So
that's right.
A shot for every defaulted borrower.
Oh, you guys, there you go. Making America great again, one mortgage or one drunken modification at a time. So you guys, first of all, for those that don't know who you guys are, why don't we start with a little bit about who you are, and because you guys have been working together on a variety of deals, but you also do deals independently and stuff like that. So why don't we start with the ladies first. Gail, I want you to introduce a little bit about who you are, kind of what your focus is on the note business. Then we'll go to Chris, and then we'll talk about how you guys kind of hooked up, okay?
Yeah, great. So at the very end of 2016, I joined your mastermind. Actually, I took the fast track training in November of 2016 and went to my first mastermind like 2 weeks later. And at the end of that month, December, I bought my first 2 notes. And I spent most of 2017 doing deals with my own IRA money because I didn't feel prepared to JV with anyone until I had more experience under my belt. But during that year, I bought as many different kinds of situations as I could find so that I would experience many things and gain wisdom. And by the fall of 2017, I started getting a lot of JV partners and doing a lot of deals and built my portfolio pretty fast. By the end of 2017, in my first year, I had 30 notes, and now it's doubled. And it's just been, a year of kind of evolving as a note investor and understanding kind of what the normal phases are from going from not knowing anything yet to, okay, I'm rolling. I need better systems. I know I need, and I really kind of felt in 2018, I had met Chris because I kind of, he's a big online social media guy. And one of the few investors who was kind of in my area, we're both in the Northeast. I'm in Philadelphia. He's in DC area where my son lived. So I hopped on a mega bus. I asked him to meet me in like the summer of April of 2017. And we spent 4 hours together in a Starbucks just talking about notes. It was awesome.
Awesome.
And then we team up this year, so it's been great.
Yeah, I think Gail, was your son was having landlord issues. I think in DC was where the conversation started.
Yeah, and you were zero help with all of that, Chris. And now he moved to Seattle. That's how well it worked out.
So Chris, let's talk about you, bud. How'd you get there?
So I, come from a real estate background where I've been involved in construction real estate for 20 years, and with the wife and kids, trying to grow some real estate business is pretty much impossible, especially in DC with the equity that's needed. And it was April of 2016. I was on Bigger Pockets, and I saw this guy, Scott Carson, talk about notes. And I was like, oh, intrigued, because I had never known about notes or it existed. And being a typical engineer, analysis paralysis for a good 6 months. And then I took, it was October, November of that year, you had the note camp. And after note camp, I finally was like, okay, I'm going to pull the trigger. Bought 4 notes at that point in time, used some of my retirement money on that, worked those out, and then bought some more, with my retirement money, worked them out. And then once I started getting 10 to 12 under my belt, understanding it, started getting, some JV partners, and then, continued to grow from that point in time. And, last year in May, what was it, November of, 17, 16 started, 17, I, from Note Camp, won the Fast Track Social Media Award. So in May of 2018, I took the Fast Track with you. And, since that time, it's really just taken off for me.
Yeah, you guys are both doing a really good job. I mean, you guys have closed on what, 30, 50 notes a piece, something like that, or more?
Yeah, more, actually. Yeah.
More.
50, 60 plus. I think Chris is up in the 80s, 90s.
I'm almost at the magic 100. So
yeah, he keeps buying these little pools of things.
It's been about 50 since the Fast Track. So
there you go.
From May to now, it's pretty close to 50 just since then.
That's awesome. You guys are doing a great job. Very proud of both you guys. And then you're also very active online, sharing your wisdom across Bigger Pockets and other things. And the question I like to ask is, as always, so why decide to do a podcast? What was been the magic? Who was the idea for the podcast? Who came up with it? Or what? And because I know you guys kind of partner on a few deals to begin with too, didn't you?
Yeah, we just, the question for both of us in 2018 is, how do we want to get bigger? What's the next level? And how are we going to get there? And Chris is, he's like a diabolical genius with numbers. He's like scary smart. We've just recently decided I'm the word person. He's the number person.
There you go.
So I'm writing the emails. He's doing a lot of the other stuff. I always really, from conversation with Chris, like, we're so similar in our outlooks, our values, our goals. It just seemed really like a natural thing for us to team up. He accomplishes a great deal, but he still technically does have a full-time job. That's a pretty demanding job. He's got a really demanding home life. So I have a different situation. My kids are grown, and for me, like, I see all the couples who come to the note events, and I'm kind of jealous because my husband has never been interested. And, it's a lonely vigil that I keep. So I thought, could I get a young man to partner with me?
There you go. Good stuff out there. We got some.
How adorable he is.
Exactly. We got some good people out there. Let's see. Eric Hyde says, yo, what's up, Gail and Chris? Laura Blunk, hey, a toast of notes. Christina Fuller says, hey, Gail and Chris. Rudy Willis is loving the Good Deeds podcast, guys. That's awesome. So let's talk about some things here before we dive a little more about the podcast and stuff like that. For those that are looking into the new year, 2019, what are some things that you would recommend to a new note investor looking to get started in note investing, whether it's coming from the fix and flip side or a lazy landlord or wholesaling or brand new? What's probably the most important thing you would tell people to do? And Gail, we'll start first with you on that.
Well, I would say, a lot of people have been complaining about the prices going up. And of course, your response, rightly so, to that is that you have to be more, you have to call the banks. You have to really be very industrious about all the ways that you look for deals. But people who are brand new don't even know the basic, usual people we all go to for deals. So for me, I feel like I've gotten a lot more flexible about what I think is a deal. I talk all the time when I'm selling notes to people who are still following some very strict script about what makes a deal. And, I feel like those people are never going to be able to buy anything because they're too rigid in their thinking. So, like, if the numbers make sense, I'd say that one of the main things that I always notice, I'm trying to sell some notes right now. One gentleman can't get past the fact that he can't get really solid BPOs on these properties. And they're both the ones that he's looking at are both CFDs. And I always say, like, hey, I think you can assume, even if this borrower goes, that you're going to be able to resell it for at least what this borrower paid for it. So do we really have to worry about like what some existential ultimate value is? That only matters if you're going to sell it. And usually those places aren't in good enough shape to sell retail. So
is this these occupied assets or performing assets?
Yeah. These are mostly performing and sub-performing. So that's another reason it's kind of silly that he's going,
Yeah, a lot of people get so bogged down into the one exit strategy or what their spreadsheet tells them that they don't look at the common sense underwriting aspect of things. So
those calculators those ROI calculators, just throw them away.
Yeah.
Train your brain.
You make a really good point there. You've got multiple strategies with the note space you can think of. And the biggest mistake I made earlier on, over a decade ago, was coming into the space and treating everything like I was going to foreclose on it. And I lost a lot of money by going that route versus working to modify and reinstate people and be a little bit more flexible in my exit strategy. So I'm glad you say that. Chris, what's the number one tip you'd give to somebody looking to get started this year?
I'd say make sure you get good training. And like we talked about with pricing going up, you got to be patient. As we talked about before we came online, some of the pricing that's out there right now is just so absurd. And I almost look like these sellers are trying to, be predators against some of these newer investors, not knowing any better. So it's, that's the two things. And look for a mentor as well. Try and find somebody who's bought some notes and, talk with them and run ideas off them. Or if you're looking at bidding on something, just have them double check your numbers, because the last thing you want to do is get into a deal that you either overpaid or there's, something wrong with the collateral that is very costly.
Mm-hmm. Really good point. Let's talk about that situation we were talking beforehand a little bit. Let's not name any names.
Yeah.
We can talk about, let's talk about the smoke blowers or the crack smokers. How's that sound?
Yep.
Yeah. What were some of those deals you were offered the other day, Chris?
Yeah, so it was, I had bid roughly about 15, 20 assets. The bid was somewhere around, call it 350, 400,000 on these assets, roughly call it 20 grand a piece. And some, low balanced and some, most of the properties were $50,000 to $100,000 properties. And most of them did have equity in them. So I knew they'd want a little more money on up front and so forth. So I thought, a little more aggressively on them. But, they, when I spoke with them, the first comment was, I spoke to one person who basically, like I said, it was almost like I was buying a car, where they was like, oh, let me bring in the lead manager on this to talk to you. And telling me how smart I was and how well known and all this. And I was sitting there thinking, oh, here we go, because we just got some new vehicles because we lease ours and those were up. So it was like, hitting record, rewind and record again.
Yeah, they're going to sell you the undercoating now.
Yeah, but what I caution everyone be careful with was he was trying to sell everything based off of the fair market value. And example, one house was worth $250,000. And the note was about 3 months behind, and it was had a $50,000 UPB. And he was trying to tell me, you'll end up with the house. You're going to end up with it. So I'll sell it to you for $150,000 because you're going to get it. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to end up with the house, because if it forecloses, 50 grand ain't going to go very far unless it's only worth 50 grand. So, so they were trying to sell everything based off of fair market value, which you got to be, if it's something where the loan is upside down, absolutely, you're going off of, the property value, but always go after the lower of the UPB and property value, which in this case, the UPB was lower, but they were still trying to sell it. So it was literally, I would have been bankrupt in 3 months if I had bought that pool.
Oh, we see a lot of that. Yeah.
There's a lot of people in this world who are, do make crazy. I mean, the sellers want crazy things like that, and they're so forceful. And if you're new, you could kind of be persuaded by how much commitment they have when they tell you these things. You're going to get the house.
Oh no, they were. I mean, it was a very good, slick talking individual. Like, when they go get your car, let's get the undercarriage done and the seats and the ultra floor mats. It's
the extra warranty, the extended warranty.
Yeah. Exactly.
So that's a great thing. So be careful, make sure you are flexible in your exit strategy. Like Gail said, know what's going to happen. Look at the numbers and know what you're bidding off of accurately. Like Chris said, that's a big thing. Always go off the lesser of the two, the value or the UPB, and go from there and stick to your numbers. If the numbers don't make sense, next, right? There are always more tapes coming around, especially if you're doing some marketing and reaching out to different funds or different asset managers. So one of the things, let's do this in a couple phases here. Everybody's talking about sources, and without disclosing any names or things like that, what are some of the things that you guys are doing to find new sources besides the lowest low-hanging fruit that everybody knows that's out there? And Chris, we'll start first with you on this one.
So a few things is we've gotten to grow. A few things Gail and I have done is, we've bought in some REOs and taken those and turned them into land contracts or, sold those off. So that's one area that looked at. And
you talked about a deal recently on one where you were into it for 5 and sold for 25 or something like that. Does that sound, you bought like 6 of them? Is that correct, guys?
Yeah. We bought for 3,000. We just sold it for 27. So that's been our big woo-woo so far on that one. That was a rural Oklahoma property, so that was quite a surprise that we could get that for it. It was quite busted up and in a floodplain, as it turns out.
That just means it's got an indoor water feature part of the year.
There you go. Think about an underwater asset. There you go.
Mm-hmm. So, with LinkedIn kind of making things a little more difficult right now, the thing I found is that's really worked the best is, and I know people talk about email, pick up the phone and start calling people and just introducing yourself and really reaching out. That's one thing I've started to do at like lunch breaks or in the evenings, people on the West Coast, just pick up the phone, call them, leaving them messages, to see who they are, or also touching base. Gail and I had a conversation with an individual the other day who is an attorney who represents a lot of other attorneys and knows a lot of funds. And he rattled off, hey, call these 10 people. So it's really that part of networking. It's not always just reaching out to a hedge fund. Sometimes those hedge funds usually have relationships with people. If you can find that, other person who has that relationship with them, he can give you the in versus calling them cold. And that can be very successful with that.
Good stuff. Gail, what's another source that you've been doing? Is it a little bit different, more so, or what?
Yeah, well, actually, just to echo what Chris just said, when I was still fairly new on this, it turns out that Alex Goldufsky's office is like 20 minutes from my house. So I went to see him and just, he was gracious enough to welcome me, even though he hadn't done that many title reports for me yet. And, we had lunch and he literally went back to his office and wrote to like 6 people introducing me to them. And those people, one of them is the one that we were just talking to, who's now introduced us to other people. But I was going to say too, like this is a little kind of different. So right, either you find them or they find you, the sellers. And, part of our strategy, frankly, and with the podcast too, is just to be more high profile in this world. And, so that when people have stuff and they don't know who to go to, they come to you. And I actually got that idea because, Dave Putz told me he's got a big Facebook group and a meetup group in New Jersey. And, he told me about deals that have just come to him because people are sick of their notes and they're not necessarily big regular players in this world where they know everybody we know. They kind of don't know anybody. They may have created their own notes. Now they want to cash out or whatever. And people have brought him unbelievable deals just because they've heard of him. So
yeah, the distressed part of the deal is not the borrower; it's the owner of the note who wants to get out of the business or wants to move on to something else.
Exactly. Yeah. There's a lot of notes out there in private hands. Like I don't know if you ever kind of attempted to establish how many, but it seems like there's quite a few.
There's a lot of people that have like a lot of one-off notes, or they have like 5 or less that they finance with their investment properties and things like that, and it's not their company. I think we'll all agree though that if you're going to be in the non-performing space, it's really got to be a focus. Would you guys agree to that? For the most part, you can't really be spinning other plates for the most part, other real estate deals, or would you disagree with me?
I would agree. I think, you can have, a property that is a note that you take back and turn into a rental. And, you might be able to pick up rentals, but from a business perspective, I don't think you can fully run a, a fix and flip business, or, buy 20, 30 buy and holds a year as well as do notes. And I think you can diversify in regards to having both. But I think if you're trying to do both, I think you got to do one or the other. You might be able to dibble a little bit in, the other component to it. But the note side, I think it takes a lot of time if you want to do it right.
Yeah, it's certainly where the bang for the buck is also. If you're going to spend time doing anything, that's where the biggest gains can be made. We were actually inspired by Eddie Speed to, take performing notes that we had and to shop them as partials to see if people wanted to buy. And although we've sold some, like for the most part, we have not yet connected with that group of people that wants to buy partials or full notes. Most of the people that we know are looking for non-performing notes. So, the question becomes like, if you do take non-performers and turn them into performers, like what's the best way to get, your money back out of them, So I'd actually love to hear people's thoughts about that.
So one of the big things that we are doing, and it's a big marketing push we're doing, is we have, especially over the last 12 months, I've switched my focus in where we go to market for investors looking for performing notes. Let's face it, we go to a note expo or even note camp or DME or IMN or any of those. You got a lot of people looking for non-performing notes. We're all sharks. You're swimming with sharks, right? So I stopped marketing for the most part to that group. I started focusing on the mom, pa, IRA investors, and not necessarily the Quest clients, because Quest clients are great. There's some people that are looking, but literally local people in my market looking for performing notes that are happy making the 6 to 8%. Not only is it cheaper money, and I can arbitrage out the performing note, or pull out the investor's money or my own money, put that back into my game, pay them a great return, but stay involved in the deal like a partial. So right. If that's paying $800 a month, and their money, their payment is like $400 a month. Great, they're happy on their $400. I'm still keeping that split between the difference and staying involved in the deal and going from there. Chris, I didn't mean you were going to say something.
Yeah, I was going to agree. You helped me start the meetup group in DC, which we've had a meeting and starting to get that taken off and stuff. But just by meeting with local people, especially in my area, DC, there's a lot of engineers, and they don't want any type of risk, or they just want something more secure. So, I mentioned, hey, look, especially if they've got 5, 10 grand or, 15, 20 grand, want to get in on a partial where you might not be able to get in on a note. You can park that money there, and it's, I'd say probably a little safer. It's definitely safer than a non-performing note. And it's less risk, and
definitely safer than the stock market after the last few weeks. It's not a tough sell right at this moment.
Did you guys see the article where the top performing asset was cash at 1.9%?
Don't make anything, but you don't lose it either.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it may go up, it may go down, but end back in the same place. Whereas if you look at what we're doing with the non-performing and getting those to performing, because that's really the ultimate goal, is to get it converted to a performing note for the yields to be great, stuff like that. So it goes on autopilot for you. Like Gail, you got started initially to not only make money, but you also have a very generous heart and are looking to donate money and really kind of give back too, right?
Yeah, well, I really just want to get my sort of own survival and, fun times retirement needs satisfied. And then I would like, in the past, I'd always thought in terms of like giving money to charities, but I would love to manage a note portfolio for charity, and just give people like, regular cash flow that they can count on year in and year out. That's the goal. Still climbing.
Right. Chris, what's kind of the ultimate goal for you to get rocking into this? Is it kind of leave a job or help with the family or what?
Well, I think one is, and Gail and I are at exact opposite ends of the spectrum in regards to her kids are gone and so forth. And she does this full time, where I've got the full-time job and younger kids. So for me right now, it's basically, I'd say, getting ready, pay for college and put money away as much as I can. Cause, I look at from the money I can make off of the notes, it's sooner I can either retire or, get out of the full-time job eventually. Eventually I'd like to just do this full time. It's, I have goals. It's not something, next 12, 24 months. It's a little longer term. And, same thing like Gail talked about charity. Mine, I think, is a little different, whereas I start to really get involved in some of these markets. Some of these properties I take back as an REO. What I'd like to do is find some local contractors, fix them up, and donate it to, disabled military, veteran, something like that, some type of group like that, where, some of these areas in Indiana and stuff where, I've been investing in stuff where you take back a house, and, it might have been a CFD that you only paid, 7-10 grand for, or something like that. And if you've got payments or whatever it is, just work on finding some contractors, fix it up, and, donate it is something that I'd like to start doing at least, one property a year minimum, starting this year or next year to start doing.
Good stuff. And it allows for that stuff to be a write-off as well, to go off your taxes there too for you. I have found the perfect charity for you, Gail. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. It's called the EH Fund for Eric Hyde Fund. Eric Hyde says you can donate to me.
That poor deserving boy,
Yeah.
Eric Hyde.
Yeah, exactly. The AWNS thing. Hey, what's up, Eric? Good to see you, buddy. Our friend out in Gardenia, the sergeant in the Gardenia Police Department in California. They're out there for you. So you guys have both been doing this work going on about over 2 years now, for the most part.
Yeah, close to 3. Yeah,
close to 3. Yeah, over 2, closer to 3. What's been the biggest surprise for you? Things maybe that you thought initially, and then 6 months, a year, you like, oh, I was completely wrong about that. Gail, what's one of the biggest thing that's been the biggest surprise to you that you really had to wrap your head around? It took a little bit longer than you expected.
Yeah, I think the biggest surprise for me is how much I love it, because I have been in really almost every kind of real estate, from flipping to being an investor in bigger multifamilies and managing student rentals. And well, I knew I wasn't going to love that one, but it's just, it's such a great mix of, kind of straight number work of really understanding your ROIs and having goals. It's super fun, even if you're not a math person. Like, it's amazing how much fun math becomes when you're, measuring your own progress toward a goal, or you're planning a future with a certain cash flow and everything. You're like really seeing how it can happen, and it's very concrete and easy. I also just really love the creativity of it, figuring out how to make something a deal, that was something I never, it's hard when you take different kinds of real estate training. You feel more or less like you have to follow the recipes that different gurus give you. But, like with you sort of get the tools, and then it's like learning the basic rules of cooking and then being ushered into a room with lots of delicious ingredients on the counter. It's like, ooh.
I'll show you how to make the cupcake. The icing and the sprinkles is all yours, right?
Exactly.
Scott Carson cupcake, the note cupcake.
Someone will use that now.
Someone will use that, exactly. I'm gonna go buy the domain and sell it to them for $1,500. Chris, what's been the biggest surprise for you, bud? You're almost 3 years now.
So 2 things. One is how small the industry really is. You see a lot of people, I think, come and go that try to get in but don't stick. So I think, as you be a part of these groups and so forth, some people just are always either pessimistic or antagonists on things. That can really hurt you, to say the least. So because it is such a small, tight-knit community. So that's first thing. The other thing is, I'd say, raising funds and finding JV partners and stuff like that is not as complex as, it's really not, I don't want to say it's simple by any means, but if you market and you can communicate well with people and just have some, history and some, background on what you've been doing, and can explain that to people and share deals with them and, explain to them how you're going to treat them. I think building that relationship is Gail's dogs. I think that has been something that at first, a lot of people will think, oh my God, it's going to be impossible to find partners and stuff. But it's as you start to just do videos or the podcast, or just, post stuff online and just, share some expertise, whether it's on Bigger Pockets or Facebook, people reach out and you just build relationships with them.
Yeah, I'm actually really surprised, just to make this point about Chris, what Chris said about people kind of come and go and everything. Like, I'm always surprised to see people on Bigger Pockets complaining about how much money they've lost in notes and stuff. Like, I understand it's possible. I have lost a little bit of money, on a deal that I probably should have never bought. But this feels pretty, if you do your due diligence and you're smart about it, like, it feels like, as long as you don't really, buy a house that already burned down or something like that, like, it feels like it's kind of hard to lose all your money compared to like a flip where you could be in the middle when the market changes and suddenly now all your numbers are upside down and stuff. So.
Yeah, I've been there. Back a decade ago when I was doing some bigger fix and flips, and 10 foreclosures on a street will cause your values to drop pretty dramatically on something. Yeah, but that's the thing is you want to avoid the Debbie Downers. Yeah, I see that people complain about pricing, or people complain, oh, I had this horrible deal. Well, how many deals have you done? Well, one. Well, that's kind of the problem. Did you jump in? Did you overpay? Because honestly, for the most part, the only way to really lose money, if you don't do your due diligence, don't check your taxes, and then don't follow through with the assets for the most part, and be flexible on what your exit strategy is, right?
Yeah, we get calls from people all the time, trying to, ask for help after they've already done something really calamitous, and there's unfortunately not much that can be done. Chris was trying very hard to help someone who way overpaid for something, and there's just there's no way out at that point.
It was a non-recourse loan that was made to an IRA investor on a property in the Motor City that they paid par for the note, never did a BPO, never checked the pay history, and lost 90% of their investment.
Vacant, turned into a vacant asset or an occupied asset?
It was actually vacant when she had bought it because the electrical hadn't been on in like 5 years.
Oh,
right. She didn't know it, right? She thought
she didn't do any. She bought it from one of these like funds that was selling, calling it a performing note because somebody bought it and made 2 payments, and it was like a 3-year payment with a balloon to an IRA investor. And funny thing was, the actual woman whose IRA it was in, actually, I lived like 5 houses down from where this woman lived at one point in time. But it was a non-recourse loan through that woman's IRA. So there's nothing you could do after it went to foreclosure, sold for single digits in thousands. And, they were in it for a lot more. And I felt so bad for this woman, in sense, but it's sometimes people just could be careful. Even when someone sells you a performing note, you really need someone to look at the collateral and still do all the regular due diligence.
Yeah, I feel like those are the ones you have to be the most concerned about because there's just no margin for anything to go wrong.
You're totally right. And there's a lot of people out there, a lot of funds and a lot of sellers. Oh, the borrower has made 1 payment. It's a performing note. No. Or the borrower has expressed, this is my favorite, expressed interest in a loan mod, so we're going to charge you loan mod. And Scott Van Camp and our buddy up there saying, and don't buy assets from crack smokers. Amen to that. Forget the crack smokers. In Texas, you know what we do to those people? But yeah, and then see, the Laura Blix says, yikes. Stephanie says, hashtag note sprinkles. There we go. Good stuff out there. our cupcake person. Doing due diligence, checking on things. It is a very small market, especially when you're hanging out on Bigger Pockets or LinkedIn and communicating from there. Now let's kind of transition a little bit. You guys had the idea of the podcast last year, and you got a few episodes. Then you're on episode 15 with a few more getting ready to go live there. Out of the episodes, what's been the biggest surprise you've gotten from having the Good Deeds Note Investing podcast?
We're hearing a lot from people that we thought we were kind of getting a little too granular, like talking about all the excruciating details of the things that we do. But that's actually what people are really appreciating because they love like the high level stuff, in terms of kind of shaping their philosophies and stuff. But there's quite a hunger, it seems, for, just really knowing exactly what happens and exactly what to do in a particular situation. And even though you could never cover in a lifetime every situation that could possibly arise.
Yeah, well, I'm on episode 400 and I still got a lot of ways to go. Chris, what's been the biggest surprise for you, bud?
Yeah, similar to what Gail said, we kind of targeted almost as like reality TV in the sense of we're just telling our story and stuff that's in real time of what's going on these deals. And, I'd say we do, especially myself being the engineer, I sometimes dive too deep in the weeds and Gail's got to reel me back out and so forth. But that's been, people just commenting on the fact that, we go very in depth into the deals because, you can learn a lot about this industry. And I think the best, once you get a lot of that training, you get into a deal and things, you got to act on the fly. And sometimes things come up that you never anticipated. And how do you handle that? And we're just sharing our stories. Like I posted one, I do a video every morning on my way to work and just post it. And I posted one where I get a call on a contract for deed from the city basically saying, hey, there's an unregistered car in the yard. We're going to start finding you. And, just put it out there. I've never had this happen to me before. Anyone ever have it happen? What can I do? And of course I'm asking my attorney, but I just wanted to also share that story with everyone else because it's, I think, valuable information for people who may be involved, may have this come down the line because it's not probably unordinary to have, vacant vehicles sitting in a property.
Yeah. And actually, you never run out of stuff to talk about because having that happen to you in North Carolina is probably not the same as having that happen to you in Ohio or Michigan.
It's extremely hard to find somebody to tow a damn car off, though. I found I had something happen in Oklahoma, a couple of states, and a lot of times they, oh no, we don't get involved.
Not the donation people, all the charities that take them. No,
they still want to have like the title on that, KARs, cars for kids. Yeah, you can call those guys. They don't like it half the time.
I just realized I have a non-performing borrower who is actually a tow truck driver. I'm wondering if he can go tow it, and at least I could pay him so I could at least get paid on one of the loans and not get fined on the other.
You can give a
credited to his payment. You're not going to get it if you get paid.
Yeah, so when we first started the podcast, I felt like, I don't know how long they actually are, but it felt like they went on and on because Chris and I tend to digress, both of us. So we would start on a topic and then I'd go down a tributary and he'd go down a tributary and then they would branch off into other things. And, we finally decided like, okay, let's streamline and let's have a structure here. So now we have in our podcast, it is composed of 3 portions. There is the first one, which we call What Just Happened. And that's where we get to just talk about like whatever is the topic du jour, the phone call I just had, the thing that's driving me crazy. And then we segue into a main topic, which is a pre-planned, we actually did a little homework for this one so that we can not just tell you our story, but tell you some like the underlying rules about it. And then we call the final segment Notes and Bolts. And that's where we give away like a useful tip.
That's good. It's good to have the segment. There really is no ideal time for a episode. It is whatever it takes to get it done. And that's the beauty of it. There's sometimes we have episodes that are like 8, 10, 15 minutes long, and others are like an hour and a half. It just varies on the guest and how long-winded I am for the day for the most part. But that's a good thing that you have a little bit of structure there for you. Trust me. You're going to go back and listen to the first couple episodes in like a year and you're going to hate it.
I never will listen to any of them.
You want to listen to a few.
Onward.
Onward. Get rid of that rear view mirror and throw it out the back window. Exactly.
Yeah, I listened to the first one and I had my microphone too close. So I felt like a stalker breathing heavy in it. And I'm like, okay, let me adjust now and get that working. But
the women felt unsafe, Chris. I'm sorry.
Podcast, yeah. Tune in for the notes and bolts section at the end.
Exactly.
Let's see here. Steph says something. She says, while there are many aspects of notes that are fairly routine, each deal also can have unique details that affect it. You can't go into it with broad blanket expectations that everything will be the same every time. If that's the expectations, then it will likely become a disappointment. Yes, that makes sense. Thanks, Steph.
Totally.
Yep, exactly.
Are you guys already getting some fans? You already getting some people to reach out to you for different things? Any surprises that way?
Yeah, we actually have. They seem to write to Chris for mostly. So So Chris, what are the nice things that people have said to you about us?
And it's basically, Gail, because I'm posting more on Facebook and you need to start marketing more.
Thank you for preserving my feelings there.
It's literally my dig.
Me,
so
yeah, I had someone tell me, boy, Chris is doing really well. And I'm like, what am I, chopped liver? Like,
He's having to do the heavy lifting and carry you, Gail. He's having to carry you through the episode.
No, Gail's, like she said, I am a horrible writer. So I'll send something out and then I get an email from Gail and I can like read between the lines like, oh my God, I can't believe you sent that. And
that subject line.
You know what? Just send the damn email. I think I have an episode or two.
Yep.
You know, but that's the thing is we had a podcast meetup group last night here in Central Texas, and we had half the group had done podcasts, have episodes, running shows. Others were looking to do it, and the biggest thing is from new people were like, "Oh, well, what are all the technical?" And they're all worried about just doing it. You guys are what, you Zoom basically to record your episodes for the most part, and then uploading it, and then having Podetize help you with the editing or the production side of it.
Yep.
Exactly.
So we have Zoom. So I have a Zoom account, and same thing. Like I'm on a Facebook group that you are on podcasts. As you read these people just try and get so overboard and how to edit and this and that, and basically after the first conversation I had with Tom and then Alexandria Hazard over at Podetize, and all the things they do, and I'm like, there's a cost to it, but I'm like, that's actually like the amount of time it would take me. I was like, hell yes, we're using
so
them
worth it.
because they'll
do a great job too with the editing, especially.
Yeah, you couldn't hire somebody to do all the work you do, especially when you look at what your guys' time is worth with the number of deals you're doing, and then also balancing a full-time job and family and things like that. It's definitely well worth it. What's been your goals? We've asked people about this. I don't mean podcast wise, but what's your big goal for 2019, Gail?
I want $20,000 a month in passive cash flow, and I want a house in New Orleans. I expect everyone to try to help me with that.
That's good. Weren't you working with Jonathan Burton a while back, or no?
Oh, actually, he's been very helpful to me. I have a contract for deed in New Orleans, and it could be mine someday. But meantime, I have Jonathan to go over there and peek in the windows and see what's going on.
There you go.
There.
Jonathan's quite a hustler, man. Known that guy for years. Yes. Great job.
He flies a helicopter, apparently.
Well, he's got his pilot's license already. He's working on adding his helicopters for his birthday thing. So, how close are you? I mean, how close are you to your 20K? Is that a goal that you're trying to reach? That you're halfway there, 3/4 of the way there?
Okay, so I'm gonna do a little reveal here. This is like exclusive. Okay, so since I've been working with Mr. Seveney, and he's very goal-oriented and very precise and analytical. I really started thinking about what are my long-term goals. I want to retire within a few years. I don't mean that I'm going to stop doing notes, but I want to have the money where I don't have to do anything if I don't want to, and kind of adopt the Scott Carson lifestyle, and without all the late nights. And I actually looked at my note portfolio. So it's like, okay, if I needed to live on this for the next 30 years, people in my family live a long time, like what's actually going to happen? I mapped out by the maturity dates, like how long my money is going to last. And, for the next 7 years, it's pretty good. And then it starts to fall off because some will be paid off by then if the people make it. So, it starts trickling. And I was like, I don't want to be 85, and it's like, oh, sorry, no more notes. And I also thought about the fact that the stuff that's in my IRA, if they pay off, I'm not going to be able to leave anything to my kids. So what I'm actually doing right now is I've ended up with properties because I've taken them back. And rather than create new notes on those, the ones that are in the areas where I want to have rentals, I'm keeping them as rentals. And I'm also cashing out a number of my notes and buying rentals because I have now teams of people in a few places where the numbers work. And I've got them out hunting with actual recipes of how much in rent I need for X amount of investment and how much, the taxes cannot be more than 1 month's gross rent. go find it. And it's working out. Like, I have so much more money because I invested it in notes, and, I've doubled my IRA basically within a very short time. So it's pretty exciting. So now my thought is I'm using notes to build up cash. And when I have the cash, I'm buying rentals.
Yeah, you're just doing the double down effect. That's awesome. That's phenomenal. Yeah. Bum, bum, bum. Mr. Chris?
So as you've been talking about a lot lately, being able to buy more in bulk has been something that people are looking, really a way to expand. So one thing Gail and I are working on is having our attorney draft a 506c. So to look at starting a fund, get accredited investors involved, to look at trying to, take down larger pools of assets. So that's something, like you mentioned earlier, Gail and I have our separate assets. We've got a few assets together. One thing we've been talking about is teaming to start a fund to really start looking at buying stuff in larger bulk.
Cool. Good stuff. Yeah. And by bulk too, we don't necessarily mean, we're not talking 5 million, 10 million. We're talking bulk where it's a quarter, $500,000, $1 million in different phases out there. I think a lot of people, they start thinking about fund, they start thinking 10, 20, 30 million. I'm like, no. When you start a fund, you don't start off where you got to raise 5 million to go fund a $5 million trade. You fund stuff that you guys, it's like a stair step method. As you bring in $250,000, you go buy $250,000 and go from there. Right, guys?
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. And that's kind of, it's like Chris was saying, like, people don't want to podcast until they can be perfect podcasters. People don't want to buy notes until they can be perfect note investors. Like, none of this can be done without just throwing yourself into it and just starting to, it's like what you paddle furiously the ducks, it's peaceful on top and you're paddling furiously underneath. Like, there's just, there's no way around it. You can't perfect yourself and then roll it up to somebody.
Are you saying when people come to you and say, hey, I need to prove concept before I do this, that becomes totally provable?
It's so funny talking to like new investors who are possibly going to buy your stuff because you see yourself, like 4 years ago, 3 years ago, whatever it is, so superstitious about whether, this one number, like all the numbers work except there's one number. What do I do about that? This is why there's so much opportunity for the rest of us, because honestly, there are people who will never get past the fear about doing it. So
that is the truth. You got to be an action taker. You got to dive in. You can't learn by swimming in the air, can you?
It'd be nice if you could.
Let's see. We got another comment here. So we always love to know how hosts play off each other during shows. As we all know, having a partner is enjoyable, but also challenging. So it's great to recognize strengths and talents in each other. What do you each enjoy about the other, and how do you build each other up to grow that?
Can I go first? So, well, what's interesting, and I think it really plays off and helps the show, is Gail and I are literally exact opposites. And Gail does the borrower reach out. Gail does everything, with her notes. I'm the exact opposite, where I third party everything. Gail is, notes full time and looking towards, kids are out of the house and looking to build her, her house in, New Orleans and so forth. I'm at a point in my life where I've got kids with college and just trying to, get some cash flow going for that process and stuff. So I'm a numbers guy. She's more of a, the marketing and genius behind some of the marketing component to it. So it's pretty easy in that sense, where, because we're both opposites, it's like, hey, I'll handle, numbers. And she's like, yes, because I don't like numbers. And I'm like, you handle the marketing or some component to it because, I don't want to do it anyway. So that's where I think we do play off each other very well.
Oh, Chris, you complete me. It's true.
Jerry Maguire moment there.
Yeah, it's actually really been fun. I've really learned a lot from Chris because he is like so good at things that I'm not particularly good at, and haven't, you tend to avoid things that you're not good at least I do. And, he's so systems oriented. He's really methodical. He always figures out a way, because he has to, of making things very hands-free. And, he's even kind of automated his reporting to JVs, which he does monthly, and I only do quarterly, but he can do it because he's got it all set up in Infusion software. Just has to like put in a few details and hit a button, and it just like goes out to everybody. So I'm constantly wowed. We enjoy having a like just funny repartee because we have like, sometimes just the different way that we look at things. It's just funny.
Well, that's a beautiful thing when the last thing you want to do is have somebody who's the exact mirror image of you, because then you overdo things that you're great at, and then the little things or the things that you need to get done don't get done. So
yeah, really.
That's
yeah, I'd say between us we have pretty much everything covered. There's nothing that we both hate that we're all avoiding. But yeah, I mean, it's been a tough evolution for me. Like my husband and I went through some really tough years financially. So I became this, incredible do-it-yourselfer. And unfortunately, for a while, I've still been doing everything myself. But I'm actually now realizing the folly of that, not just in terms of time management and what you can accomplish, but it's like right now I'm selling some notes, and some were non-performers that I've only gotten to be like sub-performers, and the people are still struggling. And like, I know those borrowers, like most of them text me and call me and stuff. And I feel almost guilty, selling them off to someone else who may foreclose, like I can't control that, but there is ultimately nothing that I can do, unless they're going to be my charity from now on.
You need to make a disclosure that the comments and opinions of guests of the show are not always in line with the host of the show. All right.
Or co-host.
All right, too.
Yeah, I don't necessarily agree. That's okay. You're doing it. You're fine. That's totally fine.
Yeah.
Not everybody should be doing that. So be careful of the advice you're giving people out there. I've had people make a lot of stupid mistakes when they start calling out there. You got a little bit more experience and stuff like that. So you got to throw a few disclosures out there with your show. Otherwise, you'll get people, well, you told me to do this. What do you mean I told you to?
Yeah. We actually did a whole show about calling borrowers, whether you should, whether you shouldn't, if you do, what you need to do to be safe.
It was a good show. I listened to it. Actually, I listened to it. So it was a really good show out there. So,
you listened to our podcast? What do you think of it, Scott?
I think you guys are doing a great job. I like the banter between you. I love having the three sections, stuff like that. It's going to evolve. Like my podcast is evolving quite a bit too. We're looking at how it affects our business because it's been such a great, unexpected. We've seen a lot of results unexpectedly from things, getting the word out and what we're doing, and our crowd growing and things like that. And it is it's a small niche, and unfortunately, there's very few podcasts that are in our niche. We're the now the longest running with the most episodes of anybody that's been out there. But I also look at others like you guys, and then like Note Inc. as well. There's a need for it because not everybody wants to listen to Scott Carson talk about notes, and I'm okay with that. And it's the same thing. I'm friends with Chris Christosis, who runs Podfest and the Florida Podcast Association. And there's actually, it's a beautiful thing because my tribe and your tribe have a lot of differences. And so by you guys having a show, you're going to direct a different audience than I would. But it allows for us to kind of cross-pollinate shows, a different thing. So those that listen to you may come over and listen to me, and people that listen to me may come over and listen to you guys.
Right.
So I don't look at it as a thing of losing traffic. I think it's looking as gaining allies, whether you like it or not, for the most part. And so I think it's such an the numbers that I look at, and this is important, is that there are probably 600,000 different shows out there. Over half of them have not done a show in the last year.
Wow.
Okay.
I remember reading that somewhere.
Yeah. So there's probably less than 250,000 shows that are producing. Now there's a lot of shows that get created, but literally a lot of people get to 10 shows or less and they stop because they just don't see the instantaneous results. So I told you guys, hey, you guys hit the 10 episode thing and keep doing more, then I'll have you guys on and get rocking and roll on that. And that's the big thing. If I didn't believe in it, I wouldn't have you guys on here to talk about it. You know what I mean? Because I think there's a lot of great synergy that comes when you have several shows and you have things to choose from, and selection doesn't mean that they don't like steak, but tonight they might want to have a little fish or a little chicken. You know what I mean? So
Awesome.
Yeah. Like Rudy says, shame Note MBA isn't still doing episodes. Yeah, I talked to Robbie Woods from Note MBA a couple weeks ago. No, it was actually right around the holidays. We called, visited, and stuff like that. And, it's unfortunate. You see that a lot of people get pod fade, as they say. We were talking about that last night at the thing. If you can make it to like 300 episodes, you're in rarefied air of like 0.3% of all shows produced at 300 episodes. And so there's a goal for you.
There we go.
For the drinks, we're doing it.
There you go. And same. Let's see here. So yeah, Brandon Zager say, "Hey everybody, good to see you, buddy." Gene Chandler, yes, Christina and Gail answered that question. Jonathan says, "Hey, love you guys as well out there too. Out there, it's good stuff."
Thanks.
So here's the thing: is what are some things that you're doing to help you grow your show to get the word? Because it started off as a marketing piece to help you guys get a better audience. Is that right, guys?
Yep.
Yeah, so we're actually launching a second segment tonight. We're having a weekly Q&A where now that we know people are dying for like specific answers to the things that they're dealing with, people call us routinely and we spend, significant time answering questions on the phone. And it kind of just occurred to us like why we should just do this so everybody can get the benefit of like the time that we're spending here. And we're really excited about, knowing more like directly from people what it is that they need and are looking for and what they want from us. And I'm excited about doing it.
Chris?
That and eventually we're going to launch on video as well. So we want to really
decided today.
Well, we want to, again, is you got to start somewhere. And the first few episodes, really, you have to gain that synergy between each other and work out some of the kinks and so forth. I think now we really do play very well off each other, and the show is just very natural. So now that we've hit that stage and point, I think having it on video as well and starting to put stuff online and doing the video is, that's the next step as well, along with really trying to expand the podcast realm. But so far, the numbers, I was pretty surprised, where we're at with the numbers so far with the listeners and so forth, numbers wise. So, we just want to continue to grow.
Where are you guys at? You don't mind me asking, do you know what your download numbers are through your first 15?
Yeah. So through the first 15, we're at about 2,500.
There you go. Okay. Great start.
Yeah. So little over, it's been about and every episode's been about 100 to 150 downloads. So, it's been, it's been going well so far. And as we continue, and we really didn't launch till about December 1st. We had a few episodes recorded, but we, again, took a little while, got them launched. And then since that time, it's now just continuing to really market and grow and expand the podcast.
That's good. I'm proud of you guys. I am really excited for what you guys are doing. I think you are doing a phenomenal job. Stick to it, please. For the love of God, please stick to it. And I highly encourage you guys, if you aren't planning, I would look at coming out in February to PodFest there in Orlando. It's on the East Coast for you guys. I know podcast movement was in Gail's backyard last year before you guys started a podcast, but they're both in Orlando this year. So it's something I would encourage you guys to go to. Great stuff. You pick up some great tips and go from there. So once again, guys, great job.
Thank you.
Thanks, Scott.
You're welcome.
I'll be honest with you, Scott. I don't know how you do it every day, to be honest.
The beautiful thing is, part of the easy thing about doing it every day is that I don't have to consult with somebody about what's going on in my head. Okay. And it's not a bad thing. I'm not saying I think it's a great thing. You guys bounce off each other with different things. Me, I just,
sit down.
Half of it is interviewing with people and investors like you guys and vendors. So that cuts half. It makes half my thing. And then the other nuggets are just what's going on. What emails did I struggle with? Like the whole Fear Factor episode I did the other day, talking about eating dried donkey dong. Literally came from a conversation.
More cooking.
Yes. Came from a conversation I had with an investor in the parking lot as I pulled into the office that morning. Talking about fear and, they had some deals and didn't know exactly. And so that's where a lot of my content comes, because you guys are getting phone calls and emails from people. That's phenomenal. That's what it's all about. It's the same thing here. What emails, what questions I get from people online, social media. and putting those questions in the show, because that's really what ultimately people want to have. So, and I also look at it as it's my daily marketing. You know, how can I touch base with my tribe every day for the most part? They don't always get uploaded onto the podcast platform in a timely fashion sometimes, but how can I still touch base with my video, via our tribe, and really build that rapport to help people feel like they can ask any question out there, because there are no dumb questions. The only dumb question is the question you don't end up asking. So.
Exactly.
Cool, guys. Well, are we guys going to see you here in Texas for the mastermind upcoming in April?
I plan on being there.
Okay.
Yeah. Trying to work it out.
Right.
My complicated life.
Complicated. Well, you just said you're not complicated like 10 minutes ago. No kids.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, you know what? We have students living with us, and it's always like a big negotiation to see who gets to leave the house.
That's right. That's right. You do that. That's awesome. Good stuff. So, well, hey guys, what's the best way for them to get a hold of you out there? Just go to the Good Deeds Investing website. Yeah,
Good Deeds Note. What is our URL? I'm so confused. GoodDeedsNoteInvesting.com.
Yes.
Like knowing your own phone number, I never call it.
We'll put it in Facebook, but it's GoodDeedsNoteInvesting.com.
There you go.
Either Chris or Gail at GoodDeedsNoteInvesting.com.
Good stuff.
Or most of us are on Facebook groups as well. You can just shoot us a message. So.
Yeah, please send complimentary emails to Gail at gooddeedsnoteinvesting.com and direct your complaints to Chris at gooddeedsnoteinvesting.com.
Now you know, Scott, why I do the numbers.
Yeah. I already figured that. Knowing you guys like I do. But anyway, once again, guys, thank you so much for being on the show. But more importantly, thank you for continuing to be investors, go out and do things and be a light out there. Closing deals and being open and honest and sharing your time and resources as well with others out there. I think there's not enough of us that do that out there, and it just speaks to how big your guys' heart and helping wanting to see people succeed, because there's plenty of opportunity out there. We just got to know where it's at, right?
Yeah.
And thank you, Scott, because part of the podcast launch also was you pushing me at the fast track to start the podcast. So that was kind of some momentum behind it. So thank you as well.
Hey, glad to give my size 14 upside your rear every once in a while. Friendly way. So, all right, guys. Well, I appreciate it. Once again, that's going to wrap it up for this episode of the Note Closer Show. Like I said, you can go into the show notes and click on the links directly in case you can't remember what the website is. Like Gail can't remember half the time, but that's okay. Show notes will be in there. As always, if you love the episodes of the Note Closer Show, feel free to leave a review, share it on YouTube or Facebook. Same thing. Go check out the Good Deeds Note Investing podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, and all those other available channels out there. Like it, subscribe to it, leave a review, and let's get their episodes up before April arrives, because these guys are doing a great job. And there's nothing better as a new podcaster than to see somebody subscribe or leave a review on your show. So go out, make something happen, guys, and we'll see you all at the top. Bye.
All right. Thank you.